Delhi, India's capital, is typical of many cities in monsoon Asia. With a population of over 10 million, it's already bursting at the seams. Yet daily, more people migrate here in search of a better life. It's noisy and congested. Over the years, over the centuries, it's been shaped by the people who've made it their own. It's an exciting, vibrant city where many cultures meet. But it has an ugly side. It's a city with many problems. It's dirty, crowded, and polluted. Basic services are pushed to the limit. Like any big city, Delhi is divided. Travel just a kilometre and you feel like you're in another India. The other India for Anjali is like a foreign country. She's never been into a slum. She lives in a wealthy suburb and goes to an international boarding school. She knows more about what's happening in America than in the slums of her own country. For many years, her parents, both doctors, have employed household help from the poorer areas of Delhi. Now that Anjali's older, she wants to find out more about them, where they live and where they grew up. The gardener and the cook live at Anjali's house during the week. They visit their families at weekends. Anjali's known the cook since she was a child. Talking to him has made her curious. What is this other India like? What's it like to live in a crowded slum? Mrs. Calvin, a World Vision social worker, has offered to take Anjali to see this other India for herself. Nearly 6 million of Delhi's inhabitants live in slums. Dakshin Puri is one of them. Most of the people who live here have come to the city from other states in search of work. It's always a trade-off. Most do find work of some sort that helps to put food on their plates, but they also find squalor and overcrowding. Mrs. Calvin introduces Anjali to a young woman her age, Durga. Anjali only meets the girls and the mother. The brother and the father are at work. Anjali wants to find out what Durga's life is like. How does it differ from her own? And how is it similar? Durga has 4 sisters and a brother, but he and the father work long hours, so are hardly ever at home. The women are together all day. Most of their day is spent doing household chores. It's festival time, so as well as all the usual jobs like cleaning and cooking, Durga and her sister spring clean and whitewash the house. Durga, like all the young women in the slum, leads a very sheltered life. The furthest she walks most days is to the water pump. She's only been outside the slum a couple of times, when she's gone on a special shopping trip with her mother. Anjali's never used a pump before. In her house, water comes straight out of the tap. Compared with Durga, Anjali can't believe how much freedom she has. She can go into the centre of Delhi whenever she wants. She and her friend Sonia often catch an auto rickshaw to the bazaar. They like browsing through the jewellery shops that sell Tibetan necklaces and bracelets. The shopkeepers claim the stones are semi-precious, the metal silver, but Anjali and Sonia are always on the lookout for fakes. They like looking for bargains in the clothing shops, where the export overruns for the Western market end up. Clothing and textiles are among India's biggest export earners. Durga, like many of the women in the Delhi slums, does sewing and embroidery. Most of her work will sell in shops overseas, where it will fetch about 50 times what Durga gets paid. Durga doesn't have too much time for sewing. Right now she's preparing for the biggest move of her life, the move to her mother-in-law's house. If she can't cook delicious chapatis and curries, she'll be in trouble. Durga was married when she was 4 to a boy who was 5. She can't remember the ceremony. They've only met a couple of times. He sells fruit from a trolley in a slum nearby. What will marriage be like for Durga?
जब जाऊंगी जब पता लगेगा अभी क्या पता।
और तो तुझे अभी कुछ पता ही नहीं कि कैसे होगा कि
कुछ नहीं।
तो तुझे मामा तेरी माँ ने कुछ बताया नहीं कि कैसे होगा? She said that she has absolutely no idea how married life is going to be different from her own life right now. Her mother hasn't told her anything about it, and she says only when I go over will I learn what it's like to be married and how to properly be a good wife. तुझे कितने बच्चे चाहिए? 2. I asked her how many children she'd like because she has a huge family. She has a family of six children in the family, and she said she'd only like 2 children. And this was rather strange. So I asked her why, and she said she learned at school that it's better for the family and for the income that they're going to have to only have 2 children. They probably grow up a lot better. And I asked her if she knows how to prevent having more children, but she says no, she hasn't even seen a doctor yet, so she really doesn't know anything about it.
Couples want large families because some may die. Children, especially boys, can earn money. As there's no social welfare, children provide security. If it weren't for the women's group run by World Vision, Durga would want a large family like most of the women in the slum. She learns if she only has 2 children, she'll be able to give them a better life. The group teaches women who've had no schooling how to read and write, but it's also a chance for them to learn other things and discuss their problems. Women in the slums have many problems. Life is tough. Few have been to school. Once they're married, they're expected to serve the husband and his family and bear children. Marriages are seldom love marriages. They're nearly always arranged by the parents. The parents' wishes come first, and the daughter always moves to her in-laws.
The children being married so early, and especially the girls being sent off to their in-laws' house, well, it really disturbs me now, because it's just, it's not even imaginable to me that something like that could happen to me. It would never happen to me. I'd have my own choice with what to do with my life, and no one would tell me I had to get married. But even if Durga feels like this, I don't think she has a chance to voice her opinions, and even if she does, she won't be heard.
Durga's mother has brought 5 daughters into the world. Fortunately for her, she did produce 1 son. From birth, girls are seen as a burden on their families, that all they do is cost the family money. They bring in little or no income, and then when they marry, the father must pay the husband's family a dowry, in cash and presents. Anjali knows about the pressures on women to have sons, a pressure on nearly all women in India. Her own mother's a gynecologist. She's often asked by patients, am I expecting a boy or a girl? She never tells them, because very often girls are aborted. Durga's father is already feeling the pinch. He has another 4 daughters to marry off, another 4 dowries to pay. He works from dawn until 8 o'clock in the evening as a groundsman. The hours are long, the pay is low, but at least his job takes him out of the crowded slum. He works in New Delhi. This part of the city, with its parks, avenues and monuments, was designed by the British in the early 1900s. Durga's never seen this part of Delhi. She knows only the narrow alleys of the slum, where you have to watch where you tread. There's rubbish everywhere. The open drains stink.
You read about the slums and you sometimes see pictures of them, but you don't actually imagine the enormity of what life is like here until you actually come and see it. I wasn't prepared actually to see like the drains and the garbage lying around. I wasn't prepared for that. It depressed me.
In Anjali's house there are flush toilets. Many slum dwellers don't even have toilets. There's often an area set aside as a toilet. Pigs help clean up the excrement. These dumps attract mosquitoes, which can carry malaria. There is no privacy. Disease is rife. It's hard to find privacy anywhere in a slum. Durga and her sister retreat to the rooftop when they want to be on their own. After 2 days in the slum, Anjali notices that Durga rarely speaks to anyone but her sisters and her mother.
I asked her about her friends. I asked what does she do with them, and she said that she doesn't really have time for her friends except in school, where all they talk about is schoolwork. And I asked her if she has any boyfriends or if she talks to any boys, and she says no, it's not done around here, and she wouldn't do it anyway on her own.
Anjali is thankful that her parents are so liberal. Anjali's school is a co-ed. She spends most of the holidays out with her friends, girls and boys.
Play the trombone in some bar.
Okay, where's she gone?
Most of all, they like to drive around town, stopping off to visit friends or to look around the shops. As a treat, they sometimes go to one of the big hotels in Delhi for a coffee. Anjali finds it hard to imagine what it must be like for Durga and her sisters, never having contact with boys, but always having to obey men.
Well, in our family, everyone has an equal voice and everyone is heard, no matter what their opinions are. But here, the father is the head of the house, and it stays that way. No one else, especially the women, have a say in household matters, and especially not in money matters and what their lives end up being. It's all controlled by the father.
Women are not heard in the slums. Neither is their pain when they're beaten by their husbands. Mrs. Calvin tells Anjali that wife beating is a real problem. It's almost accepted behaviour. It's considered a man's right to strike his wife. Unemployment, debt and stress all fuel men's frustration. There are arguments between husband and wife, often over money lost in drinking and gambling. Anjali feels sympathy for Durga. What future does she have? This other India seems like another country.
The only reason I'd ever go into the slum again was if I was sponsoring a child or if I was working as a nurse or a teacher there, helping the people. But on my own, I don't think I'd ever walk in there again. It makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Poverty is just as common in the country as in the cities. Most of India's 800 million people don't live in cities and towns. They live in villages. The hardships they experience are very different from those of the city dwellers. If you travel from arid Gujarat state to Uttar Pradesh, it'll seem like you're in 2 different countries. Parts of Gujarat are just like a desert. The farmers are completely dependent on the rain that falls in the monsoon. If there's no rain, there's no food. The farmers can barely feed themselves, let alone their animals. On the river plains of Uttar Pradesh, the land is more fertile. Rich alluvial soils mean higher crop yields. Yet here, as throughout rural India, there is pressure on the land. Too many people farming too little land. Anjali has passed through villages like this on her way north to school in the Himalayan foothills, but she's never stopped before. What's it like to grow up here, away from the city? This is rice and sugarcane country, and the sugarcane's almost ready to harvest. Anjali's meeting others her age. This time it's 16-year-old Ramchand. When the sugarcane's ready, he'll help cut it for the landowner. A few years ago, his people, the Tharu tribals, sold most of their land to immigrant Punjabis. Already they're regretting it.
कैसे खाते हैं सर? इसे निकाल के?
Life would be sweeter for Ramchand's family if they'd kept their land. Now the family of 12 must live off less than half a hectare of their own land. When the father dies, that's all he can leave his 4 sons. How will they feed themselves and their families then? Even now the land can't support them. They need cash too. 4 family members already work as labourers for richer farmers, but the work's hard to find. Ramchand's father can no longer work the land. He lost his leg when a bullock cart fell on it. He does what he can, like making rope from rice straw. Ramchand's mother suffers from constant back pain. Heavy farm work and giving birth to 12 children have worn her out. She's suffered a lot. 5 of her children and 1 of her daughters-in-law have died. Like Durga, Ramchand is already married to Lajvanti, who is 15, but his marriage is very different from Durga's.
हाँ, शादी से पहले?
शादी से पहले या बाद में?
दोनों बार मिले?
जी,
He met his wife when they were younger, and they used to meet in a field close to his house, and they used to meet there, I think, secretly. And then she came to his house, and her parents are quite upset about that it wasn't an arranged marriage, but it was a love marriage. अच्छा.
उसे घर वालों ने दिया, वो हमारे घर भाग कर आई, तो.
Ramchand asked his father to negotiate with Lajvanti's father so that he could marry the woman of his choice. Instead of her family paying a dowry, Ramchand's had to, because they thought he wasn't good enough. Ramchand does a share of the work in the fields, but his family realizes that it's in their own interests for him to get an education. If he gets a good job, he'll be able to send money home.
आंध्र प्रदेश और कर्नाटक में। इसके बाद खड़ा हो जाओ। शुरू से तीसरा वाला
1950 51
1950 और 51 में तथा 1900
Ramchand's doing well at school. He's popular and shines at sports. One of his favorite games is a tag game called Ko. Another popular game with the boys is Kabaddi. Girls say it's too boisterous and they might get dirty. Instead, they play handball. Ramchand works hard at his schoolwork because he has a goal.
I asked him what his future plans were, and he said he'd like to go into the military, and he'd also like to support his father and his 3 sisters and see that they get married.
Ramchand is unusual for a young man in an impoverished rural area. He wants an educated wife, so he's passing on his knowledge to her. The 2 are lucky to have a room of their own where they can study in peace. Why is it important to him that Lajvanti's educated?
तुम चाहते हो कि तुम्हारी पत्नी पढ़ी लिखी होनी चाहिए?
जी
You want someone as a companion who would be able to relate to him later when he goes into the military and is fully educated himself.
Lajvanti likes living with Ramchand's family. Often a young wife is very unhappy when she moves to her husband's parents' home. She works hard doing household chores. Everyone works hard in the family. They must in order to survive. The rice stores are full now, but the grain may have to last for another year if the next harvest fails. What if there's a flood? What if there's sickness in the family? They rely solely on muscle power. Some families have machines to thresh their rice. They have a tractor. The Tarus don't. The only machine Ramchand's family uses is one to cut the fodder for the buffalo. It belongs to his uncle. After the harvest, the straw will be made into haystacks to use when the feed is short. The buffalo love the rice straw. The animals are prized, not just for their milk, but because they're used to plough the land.
और कब कहाँ नहाते हो?
जी इनको लंच से नहाते हैं, ये पानी उधर ले जाकर.
Talking to Ramchand has made Anjali realise just how tough life can be for poor farming communities. As the population increases, there is more pressure on the land, and the people are always at the mercy of the monsoons. Will there be too little rain to grow their crops? Will their crops be destroyed by floods? Ramchand dreams, like many of his friends, of migrating to the city. But will he really be any better off there?
Coming from the city and a well-off family, and then seeing the way Durga lives, and then right after seeing the way Ramchandra lives, has made me really realize the vastness and difference of the lifestyles that are in India. I expected the countryside to be worse off than the slums, but it really isn't. And that surprised me, but it also shows just how different everything is, just as you move across just a tiny area of the north of India.
After a week away, Anjali's pleased to be back home, though Delhi seems so noisy and crowded. She's dying to tell her friends, especially Sonia, about her experiences.
He's Ramchand, who we filmed there. And we're eating sugar cane here. It was really good. You guys make a cute pair.
Anjali's trip was hardly a holiday, but somehow this time the photos mean more to her.
And she's cleaning the rice.
Few young people in India, especially girls, are as educated and have as much freedom as she does. While her life couldn't be more different from theirs, she's made new friends in Ramchand and Durga, and she's met the other India.